Hello, drummers, drum campers, drum enthusiasts, and of course the drummer curious. That's me. My gosh. A few months ago, we ran an episode where we showed some of our favorite kind of forgotten drummers. Drummers that were really inspiring to us, but ones that, you know, maybe don't get the full light of day treatment. Well, all of you out there had your comments, and some of them were like this one, which I imagine is there right now. There it is. See? These work.
Oh.
Or maybe this one, and maybe this one. Yes, you guys had a ton of great suggestions of even more drummers to showcase. Because you know what? We learned from all drummers of all shapes and sizes, ages, and not all of them can be drummer celebrities. So today in the drum department, we're going to share your top 10 forgotten drummers starting right now!
That was a lot of enthusiasm, Kyle.
I'm impressed.
I was really selling the whole story, I thought. Yeah,
Also, some good drummers on those comments.
yeah, absolutely. The
Yeah.
top comment was actually Rob Brown.
No
Beat down
way.
Rob.
We should
So
point
thank
out,
you, Rob.
We should
Rob
point out
Brown.
there are no forgotten drummers in your world because you know all. of
That's
them.
not true.
You
Confirmed.
do.
Yes.
In fact, there's a couple on this
And
list I'd never heard of.
It's also true that Kyle drank 7 Red Bulls before doing that intro. That's how he gets his energy.
Another case of the Mondays.
I eat Red Bull. Welcome, Brandon, Dave, and Dylan.
Thanks for
Always
having
a
me
pleasure.
back.
This is going to be great. You weren't here for the last one, was Jared, I believe.
I can't remember. I thought I did last week, or
Okay.
I can't remember. I can't keep track, but I'm always honored to be here with you guys.
This is going to be great. So we got 10 drummers that you may or may not have heard of, but the whole idea of today is to watch these clips. We're going to talk a little bit about them. Maybe we share some stories of maybe any inspiration we got from some of these, or maybe we've just never heard of them. And then we want to challenge all of you to go out there and check out these drummers.
Nice.
One thing I learned in prepping this episode, though, because they are maybe a little bit less popular, it's hard to find video. But that's kind of part of the fun, is that going down that rabbit hole and finding out about these cool drummers. So the first drummer we're going to talk about, do you have something today, Dave?
No, I was just going to add some
I saw
fluff.
you do that.
Yeah, I'm very animated when I want to talk. I'll be like, no, go on, man. Let's do it.
So the first drummer up is actually what made my short list, but I only could pick 2 last time. So the first drummer we're going to see today is Phil Gould, most notably known for playing in the band Level 42. Check this out.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to imagine I'm probably the only Level 42 fan sitting here.
You know the band.
Oh, yeah.
Not familiar with
I know
Huge
of
fan.
them.
Do you?
That's it.
You want to know how heavy Phil Gould is? You want to know who replaced him in that band?
I know this.
Gary Husband,
Oh, okay.
who's a fantastic piano player and drummer. But Gary Husband is heavy.
Now I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth here, but didn't Cobus do something with Level 42?
Maybe briefly, it's now Pete Ray Baggin?
I think I've seen that in the chat here.
But
what
Phil
a great,
Gould,
what a great suggestion.
it's hard to tell on that track because it's live, but if you listen to the original recording, that hi-hat thing he's playing where it's like, it's opening in the middle. Zup, 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 which
Holy
is
cow.
so hard to do.
Greasy.
And yeah, him and his brother were in that band originally, and Phil left in the mid to late 80s. But there's like 4 or 5 solid records. They're really like that band, like that example there of Hot Water, which is the song you heard, is very 80s. But if you go back before that, they're actually pretty like Blue-Eyed Soul, a little bit of funk. They were outside the pop world for a long time until they had a couple of big hits in the 80s. And they kind of got well known and they kind of went back to doing their own thing. So it's really interesting. Mark King, the bass player, you notice he had that leather strap on his thumb to play.
Yeah.
Lots of really percussive stuff. But like Phil Gould really, I mean, the drummers that have followed since are great, but Phil really created this amazing environment. And just the grooves he played are just brilliant. So please check out Phil Gould. Still out there playing today.
I was gonna say, sorry, Dave. you'd have to be a good drummer to play with that bass player.
That's the
I've
thing.
never seen that
Yeah.
song, but he's absolutely ripping and
Yeah.
singing, and I imagine he'd be pretty picky about who's
I'm sure he is.
backing him
Yeah.
up. That's cool.
So who was it that there was a lot of people that suggested this, like, or was it lots
Several.
of upvotes?
Yeah,
right?
I think it was Rob had that as one of his top suggestions, and there was tons of thumbs up and all that. So big support for
Did
that.
you
one.
you spot the Simmons in there too?
Yeah.
Simmons toms.
Yeah, I
Like,
saw that.
Classic. Like even when we were doing that documentary, you're like trying to find concerts where people have them, and you can always see there's like one or two hidden under
Yeah.
a tom or under a china or something, and yeah,
Just for whatever
classic.
sounds they need them for.
Yeah.
The one thing I want you guys to pay attention to, this is kind of a fun little game we're going to play. Several of these live clips are from the 80s. Pay attention to the tuning of the drums.
Oh yeah, I already
Because they're
noticed
much different than certainly my recollection. I'm a child of I was in the 80s. Brandon was not. You were not. Dave was a little bit.
Yep.
But I remember them being much deeper sounding, and I'm like, wait a second. They're like,
Yeah.
but we're gonna see other examples of that. So
So
there you go.
before you move on, how do you spell his last name?
Gould.
Okay, so I was gonna say Steve Gould, his son, but I think they're spelled differently. It's Goold for Steve.
That's
Gould.
right.
Different Steve.
That's
different,
right. Yeah.
different. Well, different Gould because
Or
it's
different
Phil.
Gould.
Different
yeah.
Gould.
And
24 karat gold.
And it's interesting, like when you talk about forgotten drummers, because on my list on the last episode, I chose John Otto, who was
Yeah.
on a very popular rock band in North America, but might not have translated much in Europe.
That's true.
Right. So level 42, I didn't hear much
Yeah.
out here. And so maybe that's why, like, it's just another one of those drummers. That
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's
totally.
several
Is that a
examples of that.
European band primarily?
British.
Level 14?
British.
Yeah.
British band. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing in the chat here, a lot of people are like, yeah, level 42 fan here, level 42 fan here. It just never came across the water.
Yeah.
Which is probably why. So thank you for whoever.
And that's-
all the
that's great.
suggestions.
That in itself is the thing that we gain now with the internet. Is everything's right here.
yeah.
Back then, if it didn't make it out,
You weren't hearing
there's
it.
nothing.
Yeah.
Who would that band have toured with in North America?
Oh, that's a good question.
Late
Like
80s.
Talking Heads?
I mean,
Or-
they would have probably been out. Maybe that. They had a big hit single in the mid '80s called "Something About You." They probably would have toured with like
Cyndi Lauper or something.
maybe. I mean, you could even. It's possible even at that time they could have opened for Rush.
Oh, really?
You know?
What about the Don't You Forget About Me? Who's that by again?
Simple Minds, totally. I bet you they've toured
that
together.
seems like a...
I'll bet you they toured together. All right, moving right
Nice.
along.
But hold on.
Not moving right along.
Boone Gould
Lying.
is, this is, sorry, from Benny Boy in the chat, says Boone Gould,
His
is
brother.
Phil's brother, was the original guitarist who sadly passed away a few years later. Mark's brother, Nathan, now tours with them on guitar. Musical family. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Very cool.
Toured with Tina Turner in 1987.
No
That
kidding.
would
So he
make
probably
sense.
left this gig and went straight to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of took some time away from the industry, and then he's been back with a vengeance the past few years.
Well, I'm going to go check him out more after this.
Nice.
Yeah, he's great.
Well, there we go. We've accomplished that already, guys. It's good.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap up.
All right,
Thanks, everyone.
Sticking
for-
with relatively unknown British drummers. Next up, we have, and I can always butcher the pronunciation of this name. I believe it's Mark Berzeki.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple extra Z's in there, so I'm never quite sure.
Like one of Todd Zuckerman's favorites.
Yeah, Todd, if
That's
you
the
are
only
a
reason I know
Drummio
him.
member, as a matter of fact, we have a whole hour and a bit spotlight on him that Todd presented. But I felt he still needs further accolades out in the world here because Mark was the drummer in a band in the 80s called Big Country. I believe they were Scottish, but he's done tons of session work since then. Still plays the Big Country. I think they do reunite every now and then. But he also played on Pete Townshend's White City album along with Simon Phillips.
Nice.
And he's toured with a whole bunch of great artists. Really clever drummer from that era, fast hands and cool sound. Here's a clip of him playing right now. It's a lot of big drum kits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to me, like, he's not as forgotten because I just watched maybe a month or two ago Todd's Spotlight episode on it. So this all like is coming back to me, but I got to tell you, I don't like that snare sound And that song that you chose, it's just like it lasts for like a half a second. And it's the same sound. Every time I hear that in those 80s songs, it just makes me cringe.
That isolated drum track's fun because I used to play that song and I didn't have access to the isolated tracks, right? So you play this bunch of fills that are like, they seem impossible. You listen to that whole thing, you can hear that they're overdubbed. It's like, oh, he played them afterwards.
That's why.
So I did not know of Mark Berzeki until Todd did his thing.
Right.
And he's awesome, but just a side note, Todd's documentary on him, Spotlight, I've never heard someone speak so passionately about anything as Todd does about Mark Berzeki. It's like he's preaching you like a whole new lifestyle. He's like seems so passionate that he should not be forgotten and you should know this drummer, and it was pretty inspiring.
Yeah, it made me feel bad for not knowing him when I watched him. Like, oh, I should probably know the amazing player. And you can kind of see, I don't know, Todd maybe shared or took some of his influence when he set up his kit and just the way he plays. You can kind of see some of that come out in Todd a little bit too.
Yeah, and Mark still plays a big kit. He played a big kit in the 80s, still plays a big kit. I love the fact that he that's his sound, his palette, and it stayed with it. And funny you should say that, Dave. Both Pearl drummers, both play Clear Ambassador drum heads.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe there's more Mark rubbing off on Todd than we think. I don't know.
So how many people suggested this one? Was
this was another like top 2 or 3. Yeah.
No kidding, hey?
And you know, I think the trick is that he played in kind of a one-hit wonder band. Again, British. I think they were quite successful over there, but they were not as successful here. So we don't have the same sort of exposure to them. I'm sure there's tons of examples. In fact, I bet a couple more down the list, the European folks may not know. Right? It's really interesting. But that's why we have the internet and why we can do the show.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
Cool.
Dave, the next one you're going to love.
Am I?
I'm sure of it.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
sure of it.
You will.
Yeah? Is it? Okay.
This is a drummer from the 90s.
Don't tell the name. Show the clip
I won't
first.
show. Yep. Yeah, check it out.
All right. Drummer from the 90s.
Let's feel it.
Yeah. Okay. I love Steve Perkins. Like, I had his DVD. There was a DVD years back, and it was the weirdest DVD. And I wasn't really a Jane's Addiction fan at the time. But when I got that DVD, or maybe it was even a VHS when I got it, I became a massive fan. And I'm watching that clip now because I haven't seen that in a while. I realized that I took a lot from him in my playing. Like, I don't know what it was, but that was that time in the 90s when like drumming was allowed to be a little bit more experimental on the rock songs, and yeah, he killed it.
Yeah, the early mid 90s where we had the rap rock, Great Scare of rap rock with Limp Bizkit and
So good.
like 311 and all those bands. But Jane's Addiction, which is who Steven was most famously associated with, also had a band called Porno for Pyros after that. Porno for Pyros. Hard to say. He has this real tribal vibe to his drumming, but he's super clean, and I really don't think he ever got the credits. Maybe just because of the bands he played in and just never really, I think he stayed true to the craft, if you will, and didn't want to sell out and play with tons of artists, or just never really went down that path. But like, you watch him play solo, that I know exactly the video you're talking about.
Yeah.
Super clean drummer and really creative. Kind of reminds me of like a less bombastic Jimmy Chamberlain.
Yeah, I can
Smashing
see
Pumpkins.
that. Yeah, I can see that.
Do you think he kind of got, like Jane's Addiction had some big personalities in the band. Do you think he kind of got overshadowed? Because it wasn't that Dave Navarro
That's
and
true.
the lead singer was sort of, they had their...
Perry Farrell, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say one of the things, we talked to Steven recently, and one of the things I found really interesting was I guess he comes up with a lot of grooves starting with hand percussion and then works that into his drum kit parts. So I think the reason why they sound so tribal is because they're not even starting on a kit.
Oh, that's
That makes
cool.
sense.
And so
Very
all those kinds of parts just sound unlike anything.
Are we getting
normal.
Steve Perkins on Drummio, is what you're saying?
Hopefully soon.
He will become an unforgotten drummer soon.
We can strike him from the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
He's unreal.
Yeah. What? So Jane's Addiction, porno for Pyros,
yeah.
and then is he doing anything now? Like is
He's doing all kinds of stuff these days, but it's kind of little projects here and there.
Yeah. I'm glad I haven't seen him drum in so long. Who was it that recommended that one?
I don't have it in front of me, but there was a bunch of folks that were chiming up with that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had the mohawk. He had the whole.
Oh yeah.
And Jane's Addiction, the band that had dogs in their songs.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's them too. I do know that one too.
I think they had a bunch of stuff on Guitar Hero too, back in the day.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I think
So,
they did.
you know.
Yeah, awesome. Ah, this is great. It's like digging up old memories. I love it.
That's it. All right, up next we have, actually this is one of my favorites for sure. He totally inspired me. Played with so many great artists. I mean, he's most known for playing with basically two, but done tons of stuff over the years. I'm not even gonna say who it is. Check out this forgotten drummer.
All right.
Okay, so I want to start with why he was a big deal to me. So
Well, first off, the name. We didn't say the name.
Chester Thompson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thompson. Yeah.
Legend.
I was so excited. I was like, ah, you know, that
That's a
guy.
legend.
So Chester is the guy that got the gig. That was him playing with, looked like a few people in the audience there, maybe
Just a few.
100,000, playing with Phil Collins. And I remember I was a pretty big Phil Collins fan. Say what you will about that. Still love Phil Collins.
Respect.
Absolutely. But I always kind of thought like, okay, Phil's a really good drummer. If you get that gig, it's like being Dave Grohl's drummer. It's
Yeah.
like, he's got to pick somebody. And it's like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, if Phil thinks that guy knows what's up, he knows what's up. He could pick anybody. Right?
Yeah.
And so I remember watching them play live a couple times and it's just like, he has this like clean, crisp sound. You can even hear it in that performance. It's really like just super powerful. It's like made for stadiums, right? But then in that second clip where he's playing kind of a samba, you can see like he's super versatile. I've seen him in clinic twice, like crazy fast hands, but really understood the nuance. He talked about playing groove and like the nuanced detail he'd get into, talking about why he'd place a bass drum note where he'd place it was so specific. And it's like, well, that's what you need to do to get those gigs. And I was like,
Really?
whoa.
So it was all very well thought through because he seems like he's kind of jamming, but he's like,
I think he knows what to pay attention to. That's the thing.
Interesting.
So his two biggest gigs were, of course, Phil Collins and Genesis. But of course, as you mentioned, we were talking before we came back from the clip there, Frank Zappa and the Mothers have been mentioned. So
Yeah.
early Zappa, like you could even argue, I mean, is there a more experimental period of his career? I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
But certainly one of the more shocking ones is the early stuff. So,
Yeah.
double drums, Ralph Humphrey won that as well, yeah. But yeah, do you guys have any recollection of Chester at all?
no, I just want to poke at the drama of why didn't he
Well,
play with Genesis there in the final tour?
I think there's a little bit of tension.
yeah.
Ooh. Ooh. Okay. I remember Chester, like late 90s, early 2000s. There was a lot going on. I remember seeing him in articles. I remember writing articles about him. But yeah, over the last 15 years, nothing.
Yeah.
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 He was like plastered all over all the magazines because he's a Sonar guy back then.
Yeah.
And he was the guy that played the Sonar signature drums, and he had that crazy Sonar Bell Bronze drum that was like the biggest deal at the time. And that's just like, yeah, he had like everything. He had like this rad giant drum kit, most expensive drum kit, most expensive snare drum. Like, yeah, that seems like what I'd want to do. That looks like a lot of
Yeah.
fun, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for me, like this, like hearing Phil on the Genesis records from the 70s or whatever, and then Chester did all of it live. So for a lot of those songs, you get like one glimpse into what Phil played on the record. and then everything else is Chester.
It's
Yeah.
true.
It's all live performance. So you listen to like Three Sides Live or any of those live records in the 80s, and Chester almost turned them into more of like rock songs, like stadium rock, opposed to whatever experimental stuff was happening on the records. So yeah, it's kind of cool how he took what Phil did and made his own thing out of it.
One quick thing that he mentioned too is he always felt he was the American in the British bands. So he got to bring that sensibility to the music, which is really interesting. I don't know that, I think the way we all grew up, I don't think we really think about music that way, but I think back then they certainly did. Because the British bands want to be American bands.
Such
Right,
a
so-
weird concept.
Right? Right? Like the Beatles, they wanted to be, they wanted to be their favorite blues artists.
Yeah.
They didn't know they were going to become the Beatles.
Yeah.
That wasn't their
So
intention.
crazy.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah,
Great
Chester Thompson.
suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, and just a man that should get all the respect in the world for his level of consistency and delivering like every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. He was the drummer's choice. I mean, what else can you say, right? All right. This next one is a callback. This is number 5. Callback to when I had long hair. 80s roots.
I want to see that.
Grow it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check out this clip. This is, I'll say who this one is. This one's Scott Rockenfield, which is, you can't have a better name as a rock
Oh
band,
my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah.
right? Check out the drum kit. There's very little footage of him playing like choppy solos. I don't think he does a lot of that. But this is a clip of him playing back in the day with Queensryche. Have a look at the way the kit's set up, because I think he inspired a lot of really creative drum setups. So check this out. This is Scott Rockenfield from Queensryche.
What?
Nice.
So I think those rack toms are upside down to get them exactly in the right spot, because there's like those giant power toms that Tammy used to make. They're called the extra deep with no E's. Extra.
So and who was
crazy.
making a rack like that back then?
That's a custom-made rack. It might be made by Volker or Falicon. I'm not sure. It's not Tama Power Tower stuff. But like that whole front bar curves and goes around. There's ones going this way. He used to do the thing with like the chains, and he'd suspend the cymbals, so they're like welded pieces of chain.
It's like
Yeah.
Tommy Lee with the bells and all that.
I mean, he's a contemporary of that same time period.
Yeah.
Was he kind of pushing the limits with that?
I think so. I mean, Queensryche was always a very theatrical band. Jeff Tate, that singer in the video, arguably the finest voice in rock and roll. Anyways,
No
it's an
big deal.
editorial there, guys.
Okay.
They had like Operation Mindcrime, which is a concept album. So they always had great visuals in their setups, and Scott really took advantage of that in his setups. He kind of reminds me of he's like a prog leaning drummer, meaning like he played the right parts, but he'd have lots of big fills. It wasn't any in that particular clip, but there's lots of real creativity there, but from a foundation of support. He's not trying to be the front of the band, you know what I mean? Kind of like if you had Tico Torres from Bon Jovi, but spiced him up a little bit.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I think of it. And he eventually did leave Queensryche, as did Jeff Tate, funny enough. And he's continued playing for many, many years, doing all kinds of cool stuff. I think he still lives in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. He was in Seattle for a while. He actually started a drum company that made wraps that go on the drums, following suit with his aesthetic choices. It's called Rock and Wraps.
Of course it is.
Yeah,
Of course it is.
I don't think it's around anymore, but I remember back in the day, I was heavily considering getting myself some Rock and Wraps for a couple of old drum kits I had.
Well,
Really?
what's even more impressive is that you had long hair, man.
You got to see that.
Or had hair at all, right? That's
Yeah,
exactly
had hair
right.
at all.
I was gonna say what I found interesting about this band. I listened to a few of their hits like back when I was a kid. I was
No,
really into
you
like
didn't.
No, actually like
No,
80s rock
you
stuff.
didn't. You listened to 80s
Yeah,
rock when you were
like,
a kid?
Yeah.
What were
And
you born, Brandon?
97.
97.
But I was into all this stuff.
Okay.
like 70s, 80s rock and stuff. And this was always one of the bands that was labeled like progressive metal.
Oh yeah, totally.
And like in the same kind of era as early Dream Theater.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool that there were like a few bands doing that leading into the 90s. But I just remember, for whatever reason, this band was always labeled like progressive.
Progressive rock.
Yeah.
And they're probably a band that ended up getting like beaten down when grunge took over, because they were probably peaking at that time. I remember my brother's band playing those tunes in the mid 80s, and then they started getting bigger, and then all of a sudden grunge came along, like all those hair bands. And they all got kind of lumped in the same pile. It's not fair. Like Poison, say what you will about Poison and Ricky Rocket. Ricky Rocket's a fantastic drummer, but Queensryche is a good example. They're a little bit more technically interesting in the music they're playing, or difficult, call it what you will. They're both fine. It's just, there's a little more advanced, you know, melodic structure or rhythmic stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
That's cool.
Dylan, do you ever remember listening to him, or do you remember that drummer at all?
No, I don't. I was just gonna say I feel bad. I don't have much commentating, especially on these kind of long lost 80s circa drummers. That's an era I skipped. I went 60s, 70s, 90s.
Yeah.
But I think 80s music sometimes takes a lot of heat, but I love it. I think some of the greatest hits of all time come out of the 80s.
Yeah.
But I'm not as familiar with the drummers and the drum sounds. It's probably same as Dave. I would just pick up modern drummer magazines in the 90s, and then you'd see names, but not really no context.
Or you see the kit set up. It's like, wow, look at that rack.
All right, we got to keep moving here.
All right.
This next one, I guarantee none of us has heard. But this is what I love about this idea of you guys telling us your favorites, because that's what it's all about. It's like finding like some buried treasure, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's this?
Well, in one note, we've taken heat for this in the Drummio Awards, and it's a fair criticism. We're pretty North American washed with our drummers at Drummio. There are so many amazing international drummers that we just don't, even with the internet, we just don't get them all. So please send us all your suggestions. We want to try and highlight them.
And with that, let's segue right into the clip. Check this out.
I assume that AUS meant Australian.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Whew. Okay, give us a name.
That, of course, is the wonderfully talented and very well known Frank Selenza. I hope I got that right.
Frank Selenza.
Australian drummer.
No kidding.
That band's called Baby Animals. They've been around for a long time. They took a hiatus like a lot of bands did. They're back together now, I understand. Probably playing a handful of gigs every now and then.
Yeah.
But that one came up a couple of times from suggestions.
No way.
And I'm like, I've never heard of this person. Let's see what's up. And he's an instructor in Australia. And that's exactly what I love about this. It's like, that guy, you can see in that first video, which is probably from the 80s, or sorry, the second clip, it's from the 80s. He can play.
Yeah.
He's got chops.
Yeah.
It's clean. And the second video, you see how like mature he is in this playing. But you know, he's like a lot of us. I think he probably has some great gigs, and he works. He's an educator.
How hard was it to find clips for this? Because you talk about forgotten drummers, and it's a lot of work to stay relevant, especially if you had your heyday in the late 90s or the late 80s, you know, the internet just took over, and it's like to fight to find space in there. So how hard was it to find videos?
This one was tricky. I was able to find that clip from the Australian TV show, which is pretty clean. But then I wanted to find something where he showed him playing a little more choppy. That's like a camcorder from the 80s.
Yeah.
Right? So there's nothing modern of him playing. There's no like, you know, studio shot of him playing anywhere I could find. But I think a lot of drummers, especially ones from our previous generations, don't really think about filming themselves. They don't think about, I should probably stay relevant with my video content. What's video content?
I want to raise this point as the house marketing representative, which
Sure.
is why you brought me.
Yeah.
I've started to wonder this because my favorite drummers are all the big names that everyone knows. I'm not going to like name any names this second. But sometimes I've started to wonder as I've got older and you're in marketing and stuff, and you wonder, is there an element of just better marketed names? Because, there's probably great drummers that you didn't hear of that didn't do a DVD, didn't have video content, and they were still awesome, but they end up on this forgotten list. And I don't know, and they're just as good as anyone else. But then the other weird thing happens that anything a legend plays, instantly everyone's like, oh, it's the best thing that's ever been done.
That's what I was going to get to next. It's like they might be associated to a band or a song. Objectively, though, like, are they really as good as their legacy or that song? You know what I mean? Like, and that's where I see both sides. You're right. I think there's some drummers out there that, of course, they just didn't have whether it was a marketing machine behind them or they were just hitting the right times. There's definitely those drummers, but then there's also the opposite, where someone's just got this name and notoriety, and then when you hear them play, it's like, do I like you because of what you represent and who you've been, or are you know what I mean? Or is that a bad thing to even say?
That's why I didn't want to name any names.
I know. I'm not going to name any names. I have a couple in my mind, but I'm not.
I'd be curious what the chat's thoughts are. I don't
Becoming
know. If there's anything going on
famous
there.
is not a meritocracy, right?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with your skill level at all.
And
it
it's
has everything to do with, did you get in the right position at the right time, Super Rad says, it's it's a lot of work to stay relevant, right? Not surprised that anyone would just let it go after their heyday. Makes sense, right? And I think some people too have enough of it after their heyday. Like, you know what, I've done it. Now I want to raise some kids and I want to play the drums in my barn and not worry about being out there. Because that's, a lot of work. It's
exhausting.
You know that. I mean, more than anybody. It's a lot of work to keep yourself out there.
All right.
So Frank Selenza, go check him out.
Check out
Frank.
Send him a hey, how's it going?
Oh, I have a
He's a beast.
suggestion. Why, or a question more, why would he not be considered AC/DC's next drummer? They're looking for somebody. He's Australian.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's do a
And
campaign.
they picked Matt Logg.
Bring Mark Selenza
did they
back.
pick?
Oh, they picked somebody.
Matt Logg.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I don't know who that is.
I don't either.
Add him to the list.
Add him to the forgotten
All right, we got
drummers
4
list.
more to go through,
All
guys.
right. Oh wow. Yeah, we gotta keep
This
moving.
is not a forgotten drummer, but I think a lot of folks have not ever checked him out fully. You've all heard him, all of us. I mean, everybody. But you probably don't know his name.
It's a Jared Falk.
It's not Jared Falk.
Oh shoot.
This is Al Jackson Jr. Check him out.
Oh okay.
You listen while I talk tonight. I tell you what I'm gonna do now. Now the new day. Hey, 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 we got the groove, we got the help, we got to
I love the towel around himself.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's from a Stax concert where he backs up like 97 different artists,
Yeah.
right? But like, yeah, that's the funkiest version of Satisfaction that ever did happen. I'll tell you
So
that right
sick.
now. But all those different feels, all those different styles, just this beautiful pocket, everything he plays. Al Jackson Jr. played on so many things. He was the house drummer for Stax, the record label. Famously known for playing with Booker T and the MGs, which you saw a little bit of Green Onions there. Quarter notes only.
And he played on the Green Onions, the record.
That's him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Did Sam and Dave too, right?
Sam and Dave. And we were on that video, actually. I didn't show
Yeah.
that clip. Also played a bunch with, I believe he also played with Bill Withers at times when,
Gadsden?
James Gadsden.
thank you, James Gadsden didn't do some stuff. So they both kind of shared duties with him for a while. Super funky, and of course died quite young, so we don't get the chance to see him anymore. But yeah, Al Jackson Jr., check out everything he did.
Love that suggestion. I'm glad it was on there. How many people voted for that one?
It was
Or
farther
mentioned.
down the list. I didn't pick
Okay.
completely the top 10. I moved it around. And a few of these were actually emailed to me.
Oh, cool.
Doesn't sound like it was very scientifically done.
It may have been editorialized.
They were real suggestions.
They were real suggestions.
It's nice there's good video footage too from like, that's got to be like early 60s.
That's
some
actually
of that stuff.
shockingly good sounding.
Yeah.
It's really well captured. And
Way
the
to go,
drums sound
Jack.
great. Yeah.
You were there.
I think truthfully, back then, this might sound like a bit of a hot take, but those bands were so good, they just threw up mics and it sounded great.
Yeah.
I really believe
That's
that.
how they had to cut records.
They just did it. They were used to it.
Yeah.
And there's no charts. The band's not reading anything. They just
Yeah.
know the song.
Yeah.
They're not thinking the sound man will just make
Right.
sure it
No, there was
mixes well.
nothing-
They had
there
to mix
doesn't
it.
exist.
They had to mix it live.
I had
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right.
Okay.
The next one was the original drummer in King Crimson. King Crimson. It's not Bill Burford. Everybody thinks it's Bill Burford.
Is it the guy who played the Sinair timpani?
I believe it is, actually. Yes, that's a good
That guy?
callback. Everybody,
Oh,
check this out.
wow.
This is Michael Giles.
Yes.
Man, I'm going to be singing that song all the way home tonight.
Honestly, that was a brutal representation, I would say.
I don't
you think?
hey,
There's some pretty sick
I was
fills in
gonna
there.
I was
There
gonna
were
give
some
him
good
props.
fills, but it sounded like they were all kind of just like dwanking
You're
and doing their own
such a
thing in sound
dick.
check or something.
Jeez.
I don't know.
He's already
Dave's the
forgotten.
old- Dave's
You
the
gotta
old rocker
throw
in there.
shade
I've
at him.
already forgotten.
Jeez,
How
we're
many King
supposed
Crimson
to-
albums do you
And
own,
he had a
Dave?
dog dish, a
him
dog
the
food
Zappa
bowl in
record.
his tom. It was like, it's like, is this? Are we live here? Let me just take my dog boob dish off.
Now
my
I get why
tom.
Jared is always so mean to you.
Well,
I was
done.
gonna say I was gonna admire him for like he just seems like he does whatever the hell he wants.
Well, if I didn't know that wasn't Bill Burford,
Yeah.
I would assume it's Bill Burford. They are cut from the same cloth. They both have that sort of, I'm going to do whatever I want on this instrument.
One just had
I'm
a
going to
dog,
set it up however I want.
and the other didn't.
That's right.
That's crazy. No, I kind of jest, but I mean, I can see that there's a lot of talent and skill there. But I'm like, okay, I could see maybe why he didn't keep the King Crimson gig.
He left by choice. Him and another member left at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Let's wait till people review your videos in 50 years.
Maybe you'll join King Crimson with Gavin Harrison.
Come on, I'll have an opinion, guys. That's my opinion.
We just don't have to like it.
you don't have to
Kinda
like
like
We
a-
don't have to like it.
Kind of
I
an
know I'm not the only one. I know I'm
No,
not.
no. Bill Burford, and I'll be honest, I couldn't find any footage of him in King Crimson. None. Not a stitch.
What's so funny, Dylan?
Kyle's, I'll be singing that all the way home.
Yeah, absolutely.
His hats are like below his knees almost.
Yeah.
They're like way down there.
Yep. And I read an article with Bill Burford talking about Michael. He was really looked up to Michael. So there's a lot of similarities in that whole artistic approach. Because Bill Burford plays very similar music, but Robert Fripp, of course, he's looking to make those kinds of sounds all the time.
Take that, Dave.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
I think Michael Giles just took it. I think he felt it wasn't the right vehicle for him to do so, so he went in another direction completely. So the only band of note that people know is King Crimson. So that's sort of he's on the first record, and then he left in 1969. So basically year one and then done. But he inspired a lot of what Bill Burford ended up doing, right? That worked out pretty well for him. And then of course when Bill Burford went into Yes, so there's a lot of that sort of lineage in that, mentorship or just that whole sort of vibe. And yeah, that clip is from him in a performance where he's improvising a little bit. Sure, the band is playing more noise than maybe a pop tune, for sure.
That clip
kind of a
probably-
difference between Al Jackson and
I
him.
mean, let's
Yeah.
be real. He's an unbelievable drummer. There's no doubt about that. All right. There's just the clip that you.
Oh, no, for sure.
I'm like,
I'm pretty sure that's the clip that inspired Buddy Rich, Steve Gadd, David Garibaldi to all start
all the
playing.
kids.
So
Buddy Rich Steve
thanks a
Gadd.
lot, Dave.
It was the dog food bowl.
Yeah, it's a dog food bowl.
That
You
was the
know?
one.
We keep
Scruffy's-
trying to put more water in the
Scruffy's
culture
lunch.
pool here, and the two of you just keep poking holes and draining it out.
No, give me my 2 and 4. All right.
Michael Giles, don't forget.
All right.
All right, number 9. This one was emailed to me. Brandon, you may have seen this clip. Maybe Dave's seen it. Maybe you've seen it. This is one of those clips where like, how does no one know who this guy is? I'm not going to say his name. Check this out.
Okay, so
That's
when
devastating.
when Whiplash came out, everyone wanted to learn more about Caravan. At least I did, and I saw that clip, and he was the one
He
that
does
did
that.
the slow.
That's the Buddy Rich trick. Yeah.
This Buddy Rich slow. Yeah, the incredible drummer.
So his name's
Incredible
Charlie
drummer.
Antolini, and you're totally 1,000% correct about that. That clip is him. It's a 15-minute version of Caravan. 10 minutes of that is a solo.
It's a solo, yeah.
And that clip is at the very end of that solo. The whole solo is unreal.
Yeah.
And I think folks it went viral because they're like looking up that song.
Yeah.
It says, and I think the clip's called, if I remember correctly, it's like Caravan drum solo.
Yeah. That's right.
Huh.
It's
But-
like the OG. It felt like that's what the filmographers and
Yeah.
they use that as like their
And that's
reference.
from either the early 90s or late 80s, that performance.
He's 86
So he's
now.
86 now. He's still
Yeah.
with us.
Wow.
He's Swiss. That's probably from Montreux or one of the jazz festivals in Europe. I watched that clip, and it's like, you know when you watch something and you're like, that dude's as good as anybody.
Yeah.
Like Buddy Rich. Like, yes, I said it. There, I said it.
Yeah. He's
Buddy Rich was amazing. That dude's not far away from that and has a bunch of more modern sensibilities in some of the stuff he's doing, which is okay too.
He definitely needed more recognition. I think that to me, it's one of the one that I would vote number one on this list for now. And then Cole's towing in the chat says, "Is there going to be links to these clips somewhere we can find?"
Yeah, I was going to say I can do that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because if
When we
anyone,
In the show
publish
notes.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm blown away. That's Charlie
insane.
Antolini.
Charlie Antolini, Swiss drummer. There's a bunch of clips of him doing like trio drum stuff too with like two other drummers.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. And he's incredibly musical. He's clearly been playing his entire life.
Like to
It's
have those
all coming out.
chops, and it was just an afterthought. We faded out, but the way he hit that
Yeah,
China with
yeah.
that kind of style too,
Yeah.
holy cow,
Yeah, you knew what was up. That's for sure.
that's
yeah.
incredible.
Super creative drummer.
Yeah. Charlie Antolini. Okay, the last drummer on our list.
All right.
This is a little bit controversial because probably not really forgotten. You'll see why in a second. But does not get anywhere near the credit, recognition, or, respect for their drumming ability. So this is Sheila E. Check it out.
Yeah.
I remember watching Sign of the Times when it came out. That's what that's from, which is Prince's live concert video from, I think it's 87, 88. And I had no idea who Sheila E. was. And I saw that solo, I'm like, what? Who?
That's
what?
badass.
How?
Yeah.
And of course, you start going and doing some research. Back then, you had to flip through the magazines that
Yeah.
we had. And like you said, the Escovedo family, Sheila E. Escovedo, her father, her brother, so many of them, musicians, percussionists. And it seems, she still plays drums. She's kind of mostly known for being a percussionist and a celebrity. She had a pop career just after that period
Right.
of time.
Right.
But Prince could have, again, another one of those enigmatic artists that could have chosen any drummer.
Yeah.
And you know that who gets that gig has to be funky. And he chose her, right?
I first came across her back. All we had as kids before you and Jared started going hard, Dave, was Drummer World.
Right.
And there's just a list of names and a bunch of videos. And
Yeah.
I remember clicking Sheila E. And there's that clip of her at Modern Drummer Festival or something.
Yeah.
And she does this awesome clinic thing where you probably know the one.
I know
where
the
she
one.
solos like that, like crazy, and then sucks it right down, does a cross stick, and starts singing. And it's just
Right.
like unbelievable. She's so talented.
Yeah, and to me, I'm like, she's not forgotten. She was huge, especially in the drum scene. But you're right, that was in the late '90s,
It's like we
early 2000s.
We
maybe, like-
compartmentalized it and left it alone.
Yeah, and then you're right. She hasn't done it much. I actually did reach out to her like a couple years ago, but it didn't pan out. But yeah, she's not really focusing on that as much. She
think-
does have a course on Masterclass.
Yeah,
I believe,
and I think she just got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Super
and she's
cool.
like working with Ringo, and so she's kind of like in that scene now, which is super cool.
yeah, that's heavy.
But Yeah, it's crazy how like she went from that massive gig and now she's just like kind of this musician celebrity. And
Sheila, if you're watching, come back to drums. Come home.
We got a seat right here for you.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, just a phenomenal musician and also really understands the power of showmanship. You know, that clip is a great example. She knows how to make it look big and how to perform. And you see that in everything she does, right? She's a performer. And I think a lot of drummers, we're bad at that. We're really bad at knowing how to perform. We're good at playing the drums and looking weird when we're doing it. We're not great at being able to be present enough to perform when we're playing the drums. So,
What a great list.
yeah. Thank you to
awesome,
everybody
man.
out there that
Yeah.
came up with suggestions. And you know what? Let's do this right now. Keep them coming. We'll do
Yeah.
another one. I
We'll
saw a
do more.
million names already that we could do. So
I know, I was looking at the chat. I'm like, oh, that would have been a good one. That would have been a
Yeah.
good one. Leave comments below. This time we'll do a little bit more scientific, where the higher rated ones we'll
it was mostly scientific.
I think so.
I saw a great suggestion. One of my faves that I always forget to mention is, and it's hard to pronounce his name, Myron Grombacher. I think that's right. He was the original drummer in Pat Benatar's band. Played all those really cool parts in Heartbreaker. Of course,
Come on, spit
Hit
it
Me With
out
Your
there,
Best
Tom.
Shot.
Hit me with the best
You know
shot.
who mine would be? And I'll get heat for this because he's also not technically forgotten, but he does not get enough credit. Joe Morello.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
He's
okay.
known, Take 5, all that, but no one traces everything John Bonham did back to Joe Morello, and it's true. You can draw a straight line.
Yeah.
He took almost everything from
true.
Joe Morello, and it like bothers me he doesn't get credit for it.
And he gets credit for the best song name of all time.
Which one?
Drum Morello.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Okay, Joel Marquez in the chat has a great suggestion. He says, what about the drummers we want to forget? Could you imagine an episode like that? That would never fly. Yeah, it would just be like internal bashing each other.
It's amazing.
Kyle Radomski.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine. I'll take it. That's fine. Okay. Thanks, guys. That was great. We're gonna share now. It's time to talk about. We're doing a whole lot of spotlight shining. Spotlight shining. Shooting. We're shining the
shooting.
light. That's
Okay.
what
Lots of lights.
we're bringing the lights. We've got. We're gonna share a brand new drummer as well right now because it's time for Groove of the Week.
Let's go.
Our Groove of the Week this week is brought to us by a drummer named Eric Zanardi. Do you guys know who Eric Zanardi is?
No.
Well, you can find him on the internets. You can go to Instagram and find him at Eric Zanardi with 2 I's at the end. So,
But what is it? Start with
Zanardi?
an S or a Z or a
Z.
X? Okay.
So it's Eric Zanardi.
Eric Zanardi.
Zanardi. Eric Zanardi.
All right.
Check out this clip.
That's awesome.
You know what?
Oh,
The thing I love about guys that play like Eric does, he's got the chops. And it's so easy to go, oh, gospel chops, he's going to do all that crazy stuff. He does some, but it's really musical. And he makes sure he's not in the way. And my favorite part of that clip is the bass player. Because you can tell he plays with Eric a lot, or at least likes to. Because you can tell he's like, he's got me, this is great. He's like, every time he looks over, he's like, and he keeps looking away. It's like there's that great trust and bond in the musicians. But Eric Zanardi, check him out.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I always love the sound of the kits from those kind of cell phone videos from, random church bands and stuff. Like the kit always sounds so good.
I was going to mention that snare was just piercing
Yeah.
in a good way. I was waiting for him to kind of go off the hinges. Like, come on.
There's some
you know?
like quick kick drum stuff in there too that was like subtle but like understated.
Yeah.
You know, kind of
yeah.
nice. Just kind of like sneaks right through.
And he has that sort of flow in his playing where there's no tension at all.
Yeah.
It's like he's totally in control of everything he's going to do. I think it's that one time he kind of goes open hand. He's like, let's try this for a minute. But it doesn't sound like an experiment.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm making this work. You know,
Yeah,
that's
that's cool.
that musical sort of level that you want to reach for. So great work, Eric Zanardi.
Yeah, send him some love. Go follow
Nice.
him. Yeah.
Please, yeah. Follow Eric Zanardi. All right.
It's a gear of the week time?
It's time for Gear of the Week. It's time for Gear of the Week. Sorry. Can't help it.
I'll do my own sound
Thanks.
effects.
That's good. we do our own stunts here. Dylan, I believe you were actually involved with the Gear of the Week this week. It's actually
Well, not nearly as much as you, but I thought we should show this off because we just launched the all-new Drummio Stick Bag. I
Look
want to
at
say
that
first ever since I've been here. And yeah, I mean, it's been a hit so far, but
Yeah.
I wanted to just run through some features and maybe talk about pros and cons kind of thing.
Do it, man.
Let's just take a peek here.
I'm recusing myself from this and letting you do it.
Oh, seriously? Because you have all the details.
I'll
Okay,
share it
I'll do
whatever
my
I can,
best.
but I want to make sure.
Okay, I just use this on gigs all week, and I'll tell you things I liked. One, these handles that are like bolted in, all like leather suede handles, really strong. This is not gonna rip.
Yeah.
I have another stick bag that gets all cracked and the handles are starting to fray and like they won't last.
Yep. Everything black is suede. Everything blue is wax canvas.
Okay, another cool thing about suede, this pocket, when you jam it full of stuff, it's not gonna get all cracked and misshapen like some vinyls do. So that's rad.
Yep.
Other thing, when I was packing up in a hurry on a festival house kit, these zippers are so smooth and strong. Like this is not gonna tear. You could even hold it by the zipper. It's like all good.
That's a proper Japanese-made YKK zipper.
Yeah, you don't
Only
see
the
these
best for you.
anymore. Yeah, they used to make good fly zippers.
Right.
Yeah, none of that button-up stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, inside you can obviously load it with sticks, but one of the coolest features is this thing called a stick caddy that the brilliant guy who engineered this put together. I used this on my gig because I was nervous. You unbutton it, it has this little piece here, and it literally sits under your hi-hat. So you just throw it on while you're setting up, and then you can have a pair of sticks or brushes or whatever dangle out of this.
That might be my favorite thing about this.
Yeah.
thing.
It's
Agreed.
brilliant. So I set that up at this gig on the weekend, and then I had the bag. It's got these cool little hooks on the handles. You know, it's usually like string and stuff that you're tying your bag up on. Let's see how Jesus can do with this. So these just literally, you just drop it on the lugs of a floor tom. And then, also brilliant, you have this tiny little pocket inside.
Did you come up with the name for that?
The chamber thing?
Somebody did.
Yeah, that was me.
I thought it was great.
So
We
good.
call it one in the chamber because it's one little sleeve and the stick pokes up just above the bag. So I'm at, Kyle, let's just do the full demo here.
And we,
brand
and we
new
all do
bags,
something
so-
like that. Like either
Yeah.
you prop them up against
you
the
got
floor
it.
tom
There she
leg
goes.
or
Okay, so you got it hanging on your floor tom and the stick just sticks out enough that you can grab it.
Put your hand down. That's the one that you end up grabbing.
So by the time I was set up at the gig, I had 2 pairs of sticks on the left by my hi-hat I could easily get to. And on a house kit, you're not in your normal zone. You miss things, you lose sticks. And then on my right side, I had this. And it was like, for a stick bag to actually have little performance enhancing features like that, it's rad. Yeah, then other than that, you got a keychain for your drum key. You got tons of pockets.
I'll show my other favorite feature. Our co-designer mentioned to me, he says, you guys got to show this part too. There's a pocket here that opens. There's that one, but there's one behind it. So your phone can live right there.
I didn't even know
So you know what time it is when you're playing your gig.
No
and your
way.
metronome.
This dude who made it, like, he understands what drummers need.
It's because he's a drummer.
So that's all the cool stuff that we got all really jacked about. Just want to, might as well talk about the one objection. Some people have commented on the price. It's more than an entry-level stick bag. But I think we've probably all owned, you start out, you get the $30 to $50 stick bag. That's awesome, that's good. When you start gigging and you start playing more seriously, like it's nice to have one. I would argue this will last you a really long time.
You don't need to be a professional
Yeah.
drummer to have a good stick bag. You might be playing in church, in school, college, any of those places. Your buddy's jam shack, any place. This is what you take with you. Guitarists bring their guitar and their amp or whatever, pedal board. They've got a really nice case for their guitar. This is your main tool set.
Yeah.
Respect that,
Yeah, and it might not be for you, priced at $97 for the launch, but I think any drummer who's played a while and has owned a couple stick bags would say, oh, it's actually
Yeah.
really well made. It has all these key features.
Yeah.
It's supposed to last you a while too.
I think the last thing I want to mention too is when we were talking about the idea to come up with this, I remember there was one day where we got all the drummers who work at Drumeo, and in our lounge, we set up a long table with 20 or 30 different bags. And all of us who play drums at Drumeo went through and we wrote a list of underneath every single bag what we liked and what we didn't like. And it's like a culmination of all those different things that we loved and hated about
It is
different
literally
bags.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, we're all drum nerds here. And the thing is like once you do go and actually look for stick bags, there are some pretty expensive stick bags out there, especially when you get into like the custom leathers and stuff. So yeah, it is a more of a premium bag. But I mean, why not?
We didn't want to bring a bag to market that you'd have to replace in another 6 months or a year. That was
No,
the idea.
or one that had the same things that you can get from every other bag.
That's right.
And Kyle, tell him what you spent on your stick bag.
I spent about $250.
How long ago did you get that one?
About 3 years ago.
So it still lasts and it's still
yeah.
yeah, because you spent the money on it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, we should give one of these away.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Let's give one away to the members and let's give one away to the YouTubers.
Ooh, a twofer.
A twofer.
let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
You know what, Dylan? You pick someone in the YouTubes there. You can choose however you like.
Okay.
I will randomly scroll. You can pick somebody.
Give me a minute here. I
know.
want to focus
You're
here.
very. I appreciate that about you.
Richard asks while you're looking, is the
plug.
drumstick bag available on Sweetwater or Guitar Center? No, at the moment, only available. We just launched it like this weekend. So the only place you can get it is through us, but shipping is?
Worldwide. Yeah.
Shipping is.
Shipping, yeah.
is.
We do shipping worldwide. I wasn't sure if we were doing free shipping on this one or not. With the
It's priced on sale. It's priced below the free shipping line.
perfect.
There's threshold thing.
So there you go.
Somewhere
So
near
we
the-
just ship
the
worldwide.
thing
Just go to
Mississippi?
drummio.com.
Shipping line.
yeah.
You'll be able to find it. Did
But
you?
I like Plo. PLO.
Plo.
He said this is definitely something that will last a lifetime.
Well,
And
Plo
you
gets to
have
find
one
out.
for
We're going to
life.
send you
It's your
one of
lucky
these.
day.
Yeah.
It's your lucky
Plo,
day.
email me, krad@drummio.com at your earliest convenience with your mailing address. We will get you one of these brand new bags sent off to you as soon as we can.
Yes, and yes, we ship to Jamaica. Yes, we ship to France. Yes, we ship to Russia. We ship worldwide. UK, absolutely. Just go on the website. You'll figure out all the details on there. Plus, you'll see a really cool, like, I guess you can call it like a trailer, a video on it, like a
That's great.
feature trailer, a feature video. It's really cool. If you really want to see it in action. go
Kyle,
over to
you
the
pick
site.
someone in the members area. now.
I have randomly selected someone in the members. Oh, it disappeared now. See, that's what happens. So I can find it again. Doesn't really matter if I do or not, does it?
That's heartbreaking if you're the person you had highlighted.
Oh,
that
maybe.
moved.
Well, it's a moving thing. And of course, now they're all just chiming in because they want to win the bag. See? That's what happened. There we go.
Yeah.
Brent Verrill, congratulations. You have won in the members area one of these cool stick bags.
Nice.
Brent, email me at krad@drummio.com and we'll get you a bag sent out as soon as we can.
Are they fireproof?
No, but they are waterproof.
Ah, okay.
I would hate to remind you that you are filling it with kindling. Anyways.
That's a good point. Yeah. Cannot withstand fire.
Well, that brings us to the end of yet another raucous episode of the Drum Department. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I think we're going to have to do this one again. This should just be one we
great.
do on a regular basis.
Should be.
There's so many drummers we need to check out.
Yeah, well, it's good seeing the ones that I hadn't looked at in a long time, and
Yeah.
then there's a couple ones that I've never met, like the level 42 drummer.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
remember his name now.
Totally.
Phil Gould.
Phil Gould.
Nice.
Yeah, Dave.
I
Good
impressed
job.
myself
You've been
there.
taking vitamins?
Yeah. No.
So we are going to leave you guys today with our student of the week. Our student of the week is, his name is, oh my goodness, I had it highlighted.
Kyle Radomski.
How did I do that? I had it copied and I lost it now. Oh my gosh. What's that? Linus. Thank you, Linus. There it is. Dave's like, what are you doing? Yes, Drum Linus is our student of the week. He is 5 years old.
Oh,
awesome.
He's been playing for a year and a half.
Oh my
Good.
Some of his
for him.
favorite drummers and bands, of course, are Bruno Mars, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Cake, good choice, not just a food, Deep Purple, King Crimson. What a tie together.
5 years old.
What?
Hold
Go
on,
check
hold
out
on.
Michael Giles.
So he started playing when he was 3.5, and one of his favorite bands is King Crimson.
I love it.
And Cake.
I love it.
The world's not ready.
I don't think I don't think we
ready.
can do it any better with that. We'll see you guys all again next week. Please enjoy watching Linus play some drums. See ya.